So, what has changed? Let's talk about that. Why is it that now you have to live by your soul versus your mind? Why is it now that you need your mind to be bypassed in order to truly live and create your own reality? Why is that? I have the answer. You went through what was called activation. You went through what was called recognition, soul recognition, and awakening. So when someone is awakened that has been sleeping, or their life has been dormant, basically, an awakening is not to you, it's for you. So now you're in a position to where your life's going to always work for you. And the reason I know this is because I have started to experience the place of expansion. Very small bits and pieces here and there, because I'm trying to really connect with it. And while I get on here and I tell you the remedy or the formula for connecting with it, it's my own and it works. And I've seen things happen in those interims, in those places, in those times that I've done it. So today, I was getting out of my car. It was like, am I really living and creating my own reality? I go into the store, I go get my stuff. I'm getting ready to check out. And I'm like, am I really living my best life now? Am I doing everything I want to do in this life? And I walk out to my car and this came to me so clear. So I believe it's a channeled message for you and for me and for us to really take hold of. And it was this: just the fact that there's that inner dialogue going on is proof of you living in your now moment, because you're recognizing it. You are connecting with it, recognizing it. You are making yourself very present. And although it might feel like it's, hours and hours and hours before you do it again because you forget or whatever reason, because nobody is going to think of it like, okay, am I living in my now moment? And then 30 seconds later, am I still living in my now moment? Wait, am I really, really doing everything in my now moment that I want to be doing? Nobody's going to do that. And that's when I made the connection that a now moment is where we can imagine all the things we want to do and everything that feels so good and so blissful to us. And then it expands. We become expansive in that now moment. So then we're not encumbered by time, by linear years, things like that. You are literally experiencing life and just living, breathing, moving, and having your being. And we call it every now moment, but it's every recognized moment. And it does go along with a lot of the encouraging words that I have given you, like now faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things unseen. Or there is now, therefore, no condemnation to those who are walking in Christ and walk not after the flesh, but after the Spirit. So it goes along with those things because you're talking about now. You're not talking about yesterday. You're not talking about tomorrow. You're talking about right now. And I would say the very best way of making this connection is to either give yourself like reminders, or maybe just use the moment when you don't feel so great to alert you and get your attention to how you can feel great. There's no need to walk in frustration or anger or hate or bitterness or, envy, or just, there's no reason to walk in lower vibrations. And yet it's all a part of the ego. It really is. And that's why I designated a part of my book that says, let go of my ego. Let go of my ego. Mind, will, emotions, let go. I don't want my ego to be the forerunner. I don't want my ego to pioneer this and become the catalyst for something so great. I want that out of the way. There's a little bit of healthy ego. There is. Some pride is not bad. But the pride that comes before the fall, that's something that's all wrapped up in ego. That's literally wrapped up in my way or the highway. That's literally wrapped up in, these austere, strict, hard to please rules and, ways of doing things that you've been so just rigid. You want to get rid of all that. I feel so blessed. I feel so honored to be in this position, to be able to do this for you, because I know that it's a divine appointment. I know that it's not just a YouTube video. It is a divine appointment, and God has put me here for such a time as this, and I have created my own reality. And I know this because I've entered a space that I'm aware of is outside of time. And just that in and of itself is enough to shake me to my core and make me aware that there's a huge responsibility that is resting on me. And when I say responsibility, let me define that and clarify what that means. It means I don't want to leave this place thinking that there was more that I could have done to be a light and to be that love that's just completely anchored and that holds steady for people to see. You get to live your best life right here, right now. You literally get to have anything you want, anytime you want. That's what planning vacations is. That's what, going out and doing fun things that you like to do with your friend. That is planning your now moment. That is your now moment. But the difference is the expanded now moment is when you recognize it. The expanded now moment is when you make the connection. When you see your soul is living its best life and your ego is being not squashed, but tempered. You're coming into a place to where everything's being tempered. And I just want you to live your best life. I really do. I know I get on here and sometimes my own ego gets in the way, but you know what? I'm learning to let go of my own ego, because I want us to remember one thing about this journey. It's like we're on our way to the promised land, and we're all going to get there, but let's get there together. Let's get there together. Let's know, hey, I've been following Sharon since she had 23 followers. And what I have learned is that there's no time like the present. And I got on board and we created this huge movement, because that's what this is. That's what it's always been. Even through scriptures, they went from one place to the next. Why? Because they were moving with the cloud. It was a movement. And unless you're moving and unless you're expanding, unless you continue to grow, you're not going to see everything that's been planned for you. So I'm going to leave you with this today. When I was first awakened, I was given a dream about a specific person who apparently had just really touched the core of who I am. Later on, I found out that I was a twin. That was what that was. And what I have ascertained, or what I have made the connection with at this point in my life, is that this has awakened another part of me that is so powerful, that is so much connected to a higher version of myself, that I absolutely love and adore, and I want to nurture, and I want to continue to be very cognizant of this presence of who I am as my higher self. And that to me is my twin. The fact that it's connected to another person, I don't understand all of that. I really don't. This is what I also feel like I connected with, for those of you who feel that you're on a twin flame journey. I feel that at first, every single sign, every synchronicity, every single birth date, every single song, everything that just brought you to tears or brought you to your knees. Those things were not to embarrass you or shrink you as a person. Yeah, they temper the ego, they do. But more so than that, it's to remind you you're on a spiritual journey. And maybe it's to get your eyes off of the person, because maybe you get so entangled or just so focused on an actual person that it's like, we're on a spiritual journey, and here's all your signs. Of course, when you see their birthday, of course, when you see their name and their last name and their, you receive a phantom touch or whatever it is, of course you're going to think about the person. Why wouldn't you? It's connected to the person. But it comes to a point to where you're not triggered by it anymore. You're not triggered by the synchronicities that you see everywhere, that pause and that get in your face, or that, praying mantis on the window, after you just ask, do I pray for him? Do I pray for my twin God? And then you look to your left and you see a praying mantis. That's humbling. That's not this thing of, oh my God, I knew it. I knew I was supposed to pray. No, that's like a tear jerking. That's a connection. That's when you say, I don't have the answers. I don't have all the answers. But I am willing. I'm willing. And I remember a story. It's in the Bible. Sorry. But I remember a story in the Bible. And it's a story found in the book of Isaiah. And Isaiah just doesn't feel worthy. He's been beat up. He's been lied to. He's been just living with this false identity, false humility. And God is asking him to do something. And he's like, I'm a man of unclean lips. I, do this wrong. I do that wrong. And so God, in all of his mercy and all of his grace, he allows this transformation to take place for Isaiah, that, the seraphim or the angelic beings come and they bring the coal and put it on his lips and, to make him now worthy. But there's something that caught my attention about that story. It was that God didn't ask him to prove that he was worthy. God just said, who will go? And I think that's what he's saying to us. Like, who can I use to awaken everybody, to show everybody that this is their reality, this is their life, this is the biggest blessing that they could ever imagine. They literally get to live any life they want. They get to create their whole reality. And they do it just by connecting with a now moment. That's it. Can you get that through to them, Sharon? Yes. And then that false humility or that, false identity rises up like, you don't deserve to do that. You've had this, and that. God, I'm a girl of unclean lips. And he showed me, you know what that is, Sharon? I said, what, God? That's my grace. That coal, that's there to cleanse your lips. That's my grace. And my grace is sufficient. You don't have to always ask. Just be aware that you have it. Just be aware. Be aware that you've been given grace as the greatest empowerment in this life. I've been sharing grace now for 20 years because I met him as this grace. And it was the greatest awakening that I've ever had in my life until 6/5/2025. And now that I've had 2 awakenings, I just feel like I'm in a position now to really help you grow without judgment, without any critical thinking, without any strict